Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod VC edition. We have Jacqueline Van den Ende for a round two. She's co-founder and CEO at Carbon Equity. Had a really cool time last time, so today we'll see what Jacqueline is up to. This pod is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start or scale your own podcast, go to podpire.com. Jacqueline, welcome to the pods. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what's new since last time we spoke.
My name is, as you mentioned, Jacqueline, co-founder of Carbon Equity. Carbon Equity is a impact venture capital and private equity fund investing platform. Our mission is to mobilize private capital at a scale of billions to help solve the world's biggest challenges, starting with climate change. And very concretely, we do so by enabling democratized or low minimum access to the world's best climate, venture capital, and private equity funds. So that's what we're working on.
Right. So I started asking you, how's the fund? A second question nowadays is, how's the planet since last time we spoke?
Ups and downs. It's a good question, Charles. Um, Overall, we're not doing at all well enough, but there is progress. I mean, the Netherlands, Europe, most European countries, United States, and even China decreased their carbon emissions year on year. So that is promising. Especially what is happening in China is pretty promising. There's massive and very fast-paced adoption of renewable energy infrastructure. So that is very hopeful. China will likely hit its targets, its I think 2030 targets ahead of plan. So that's good. The United States is also doing a pretty good job, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, in really heavily investing in energy transition infrastructure. But there are also a lot of setbacks. And I would say, especially in the financial industry, and also in the energy industry, we've seen Shell backtrack on their climate commitments. Today, I read that BlackRock is also, for example, backtracking on their climate commitments. So it's very much two steps forward, one step back all the time. And in general, we're not at all on pace to make sure that we, sort of limit global warming to a safe degree.
Why are these companies backtracking? Is it like financial pressure? They're not doing well enough and they think that if they backtrack on these goals, the stock will do better? Or
Yes, in the case of so on Shell, for example, he's very explicit about wanting to optimize the share price, comparing himself to other big oil players such as ExxonMobil, for example, who are valued better. In general, the challenge is that it is hard to achieve the same level of profitability with renewables compared to oil and gas, because oil and gas are much more energy dense than renewable energy. And because pollution is not taxed, because we don't have a global carbon price. So that makes it a hard trade-off. And one that is not easy also to get your shareholders to back. But in my view, I would like to see much more courage with CEOs of global oil and gas companies and also banking companies who are financing those oil and gas companies and saying, we might not be achieving the same returns, but this is the future of energy. We're moving towards 100% renewable energy future where oil and gas reserves will be stranded assets. So yes, it might be at a lower profit margin, but we need to make sure that we are robust, that we're leading the future path and not lagging, because this will end. So hoping to see more courage and more vision with these types of leaders that we're not currently seeing.
and how did the COP28 saga end in the end?
Well, with some progress, but the whole COP saga is an incredibly diplomatic process where I think they did say that fossil fuels need to be phased out, but not there is no timeline. And another big win was that they created this fund for compensation and damages for emerging markets that are affected by climate change, which they have not contributed to. But the donations, if you will, from wealthy countries to this fund were ridiculous. I mean, Netherlands contributed, I think, 15 million euros. Come on, that's really that is embarrassingly little. So a few, but primarily symbolic wins, but not the type of material progress that we need. Yeah.
Are you still raising this year, or what's the priorities?
Yeah, definitely. So we launched the Climate Tech Portfolio Fund 3, which is our third climate tech venture capital growth and private equity fund of funds. So these fund of funds invest in underlying 150 to 200 of the world's fastest growing and most impactful climate technology startups and scale ups. And in April, we are launching our first climate infrastructure fund of funds, which will really be investing in the rollout. So think hydrogen, battery factories, biogas installations, etc. So everything that is no or very low technology risk and is in the hardcore infrastructure scale up phase of the company.
You said when we started the pod that you were, yeah, quite busy, running left and right. Like, how do you keep yourself sane on a daily basis?
Oh, honestly, I don't know. We're currently in the process of setting up our office in Berlin, and I'm just constantly traveling all across Europe by train. And the first meeting in my calendar availability is by June. So I don't know. I just tell myself to keep breathing, and I forgive myself for dropping the ball on a lot of things. If you message me on LinkedIn, probably you'll get a reply in like a month. And I'm sorry, but I forgive myself for not meeting the mark on everything.
So, what does your day to day look like when you start your day? Do you have some specific routine, or do you get straight up to work and emails?
I used to do a little bit more morning. I try to wake up at 5 a.m. and then 5 to 7 a.m. is my focus time. Occasionally do like 15 minutes fitness. And this year I've actually started to do more sports, which is generally a good thing. So 2 times a week at least I go to the gym to do Pilates or CrossFit or whatever. And that's a worthwhile investment. So typically 5 to 7 a.m. is really my focus time. And then 8 to 9, I often have coffee meetings. So on people who want to meet me, for example, for jobs or occasionally more for coaching advice or something, I'll make time for that between 8 and 9. And then 9 to 7 or 6 are typically full of meetings. I try to schedule focus blocks, but often they get competed out. But I think that's an important advice for any CEO. Really find 2 to 3 hour stretches in your week that you really protect with your life to be able to think, because you can be so caught up in the rat race and chasing your tail without being productive at all. So having focus blocks is extremely important. Yeah, and then by the end of the day, I try to after dinner still catch up with my email. Because if I don't do that for one day, then it just accumulates and it becomes it's overflowing, never-ending inbox that I can never beat. So that's a little bit of a view into my daily life.
Right. And the focus block time, is that your remedy to not plateauing and not doing like constantly the same stuff like a robot? Like, is
Yes.
that your time for creative output?
Yes. So the 5 to 7 a.m. sort of focus moments are, I really try to start the day with like, what is the most important thing I can do right now? And every week I make a 2 week planning. And in that 2 week planning, I always start with thinking with like, what is the thing that I can do as a CEO that's really going to move the needle? What is the highest impact spend of my time? And then I get to like, okay, what are the things that I need to do right now that are important? And that determines my set of priorities. And I also try to radically go through my meetings all the time and really screen out like what is not absolutely important. And I try to throw that out so that I can really make sure that I focus on my time. But it remains a constant struggle. Like starting the year, I felt in control, and now with all the travel and the sort of like the craziness, like the there are like a few half days where I'm actually in one spot and where I can fit in meetings. I was just walking on the street and thinking like, okay, I feel overwhelmed. I'm not in control of my agenda. I don't feel that I'm moving the needle. I'm just traveling from one place to another to show up, but I don't feel in control. So I think this is a constant battle and a constant resetting of priorities and having also the courage to sort of wipe your calendar clean and start again. Like, yeah, never mind that you have all kinds of obligations, occasionally being able to sort of reset the clock, wipe the whiteboard clean and start again. Because if you're not constantly focusing what is important and moving the needle, you're just not making progress as a company and as a CEO.
Right. Yeah, I can very much relate to that. Thanks for that piece of advice. Also, recently you went in a workation with your team. So do you do that like quarterly to quote unquote reset and reconnect with the team?
Yeah, we do it twice a year. It's always a really cool period. We this time we're in a castle in Belgium. We do it like in different places once a year abroad and once a year in the country. And the idea is to have no external meetings during that week. And this time our theme was friction points. So I really asked everybody to think about what are the friction points that you're observing, who are involved, and make sure that you get together with those people to smooth out those friction points this week. So try to really spend the time on having value added discussions in between the different team members, because it's a special moment that everybody's in the same place at the same time and fully focused, no extraction, no distraction. So that's a really good practice. And then obviously invest in having fun and getting to know each other, etc.
What do you see in the Netherlands startup ecosystem, especially in the green tech side of things? Is it booming and blooming there?
Ups and downs. I think in general, what you do see in the Dutch, but also the broader ecosystem, is that where if you look like 5 years back, every new founder would be working on some sort of SaaS software kind of solution. And now you see that the majority of people actually want to build an impact type company. So I think generally that's a very good thing. And there are a lot of initiatives started in the green tech space. The generally the market is difficult. So I think both the commercial market is difficult and the fundraising market is very difficult. So you get very skewed results. Some companies that have very good traction get a gazillion investors flocking at them. But there are a lot of companies that are struggling to fundraise and or find sufficient product market fit. So bit of a mixed bag, but generally definitely see that the whole green tech space is still really growing and attracting top talent. Yeah.
And your startups, how do you follow up with them? How do you make sure that they're on track?
Yeah, so we don't, because Carbon Equity is not a direct fund and we're really a fund investing platform. So we're more of the technology layer. We structure fund of funds. So we do have an investment team that creates fund of funds and we monitor to really specialize in the selection of funds and we monitor the performance of the funds, but we don't ourselves manage a portfolio of companies. But obviously our funds do, and they really try to support by helping with recruitment, helping with follow-on funding, helping with strategic questions, and making sure that they're on the right track to scale.
How do you follow up with your VCs?
Yeah, so obviously we're monitoring what the performance is of the funds, but also what the impact performance is. So for us, it's extremely important what these funds are ultimately investing in and whether these are critical net zero technologies. So that's one thing that we're really monitoring. The other thing we're monitoring is the financial performance and making sure that when there are issues, we have close contact with the funds to address these. But so far, the funds are doing really well. So we invested in energy impact partners, for example. They're a frontier fund led by Shale Khan in the United States. They have like a terrific portfolio. A lot of their companies raised extremely strong follow-on rounds. So yeah, pretty happy with the funds that we've invested in so far.
Do you still have time for PR nowadays and appearing on various podcasts? Like, how do you go when it comes to having the fund out there?
Yeah, so PR is important for us because it is very high reach and also very high trust. People, ultimately, especially initially, people are really investing on my personal reputation. Now, hopefully, less so and more on the reputation of Carbon Equity as a company and the quality of our team, which is terrific. But press remains very important. So we regularly publish news. Also, we do a lot of research and publish our insights. And I still appear on quite a lot of podcasts and in the newspapers. And I am also a contributor to the Dutch version of Forbes, for example. So making sure that we're always out there.
Sorry, little bug here. Thanks for today, Jacqueline. I know you're busy, so where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can find more at carbonequity.com, and you can obviously follow or connect with me on LinkedIn. I talk a lot about climate, tech investing, democratization of private markets, but also leadership and courageous leadership in really leading these difficult transitions instead of being part of the old economy. And so those are topics that I am passionate about and talk about quite a bit.